speaker for another quick 15-minute speech, maybe a bit longer too if the Q&A goes on. We want to give you the opportunity to chat with her. She has been in this fight for decades, literally risking livelihood, facing arrests, facing a lot of repression from different government bodies, trying to get cannabis legalized. We cannot forget that the reason this drug is legalized is because of work of people taking on huge personal risk to get it legalized. So here I'm happy to announce and happy to pass the mic to Jodie Giesz-Ramsay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me here at Solidariweed. Well done organizing this. You know, it's really exciting because cannabis is still relatively new, and the idea of having unions, the idea of working to improve the workplace, the idea of making sure big corporate businesses don't just take advantage of the people involved, that is so important. And when we saw cannabis get legalized years ago, there were a lot of legitimate concerns about who was getting involved in taking over and how they were treating not just the people involved, but the plant. We've moved away from that quite a bit. A lot of the craft growers, the legacy people, they have transitioned over. They want to be legitimate. They want to be seen, proud of what they do, outstanding in their field, but it's still a struggle for so many of them. The government is still over-regulating cannabis, overtaxing it. It makes it difficult for the consumers, the growers, the retailers, and that affects the workers. That affects the people involved producing cannabis, selling it, transporting it, even just marketing it, advertising, doing tourism. All of these are still really problematic because there's so many regulations in place that make it tough to grow and to really expand. The government never wanted to admit that it was wrong to make cannabis criminal. They're just saying they're legalizing it for, attacking the gangs and protecting the kids. But we did see a lot of big businesses, big insiders take advantage of this industry. But the spirit of the plant perseveres. Cannabis grows through whatever comes at it. We've had prohibition for decades, and we can overcome those problems. With legalization, it should be even easier to fix all the issues that still remain. So when we get organized, we have power. That's how we got here. It wasn't just a few activists who managed to get media attention. It was the people in the trenches. It was all the growers who were hiding, sacrificing, taking risks. It was the people who were willing to open up medical dispensaries to defend the patients, to talk about what cannabis really is, a healing medicine, a fun thing to do, something that's better for all of society. So as we move forward, the government's still trying to restrict it, but the people who love it cannot be stopped. Our passion cannot be killed. They buried us and they didn't know we were seeds, as the saying goes. That we can continue to grow further. And this plant doesn't like restrictions and prohibitions. It wants to be free. It grows like a weed. If we stopped prohibiting it, even if we stopped growing it ourselves, it's still out there and it always will be. We've co-evolved with it though. And the plant needs us to continue loving it and tending for it. In these big factory farms where soulless cannabis is grown, it's all about money, it's all about exploitation. We saw so many years of stories of abuse, of mistreating workers, bringing in temporary foreign workers and denying them water, making people get sick with poor filtration. So we've seen a lot of the harms caused when cannabis is exploited, and we have to avoid that. We need to change that on every level, from the growing of it, to the movement of it, to the selling, wholesale, right to the customer when they take it home. We should be celebrating it. And that's what this organization, the BC Budtenders Union, is working towards. They want their budtenders to be able to speak freely about how it is a medicine. It does improve people's health. It improves their lives. We should be talking about how it shouldn't be taxed like alcohol and tobacco. Those are sin taxes. That's a punitive tax to make up for the cost to society that those substances create. Cannabis doesn't have that. Cannabis creates public health benefits. Cannabis reduces the harm from alcohol, tobacco, and opioids, and yet the government continues to overtax it and overregulate it. So when the BC Budtenders and all Budtenders meet face-to-face with the consumers, they can keep the spirit of cannabis alive. They can continue to speak about the truth face-to-face, but we need to be able to do that without fear of repercussions for the retailers or the Budtenders or anyone. And when you have small business owners trying their best to run a cannabis retail store against all these excessive regulations, you need to be able to know that there's someone behind you. There's an organization like the UFCW 1518. These guys have organized to make sure that the Budtenders who are being exploited and mistreated can have some protection, because we all know that with all industries, there's good and there's bad. There are positive business owners and there are negative ones. And we have to make sure that the negative ones, even if they use crooked means to control parts of the market, let's make sure that the consumer knows there are good retail stores who treat their workers fairly, who really defend what this plant is about, who really truly protect the heritage of this plant. They're not just here to make a quick buck like so many others. They're here because they believe in it. And it's so hard to do. It's hard for the retailers and growers. It's hard for so many involved in the industry. But our passion cannot be killed. We cannot be destroyed. Prohibition couldn't get rid of cannabis, and it certainly just helped create a massive, passionate industry of people who care. And we're here in these groups, at these events, continuing to educate and inspire, because even though cannabis is legal, and people say it's legal, why do you care? What is there to complain about? There are so many issues, from drug testing that results in people not getting hired or getting fired, advertising restrictions so you can't actually promote it, the creative tourism side, which is still being stifled, but shout out to groups like Victoria Cannabis Tours. There are groups out there pushing the boundaries and, you know, really trying to sneak through, because that's what we've always had to do. We've had to demonstrate what we believe it should look like. With Cannabis Culture Dispensaries, we did that. We decided to open stores for all adult use because we need to demonstrate how things should be run. And in absence of regulations, the cannabis industry did a beautiful job of self-regulation. The medical dispensaries organized so well to make sure they were professional, paying taxes, looking after employees, because they wanted to demonstrate to everyone we can be trusted and legitimate. But when you have bad corporate players and big corporate entities who take advantage of people and exploit this plant, growing it in factory farm settings just for the lowest cost they can possibly pay, everybody knows that's not the good quality. And if they have an alternative and they know there are better people out there, they can go and support them. So with Cannabis Culture and our upcoming project called Fair Cannabis, we're hoping to connect with groups like the BC Budtenders Union to make sure we can defend those who need defending, push for more progress, and get rid of the remaining regulations that treat cannabis like something that should have been criminalized and is now just being criminalized through over-regulation. So let the plant grow free, let the people who love it be free to say they love it and why, because it is medicine. It can address the opioid crisis. It can reduce the harms from alcohol and other drugs. And we should celebrate that every single day and be allowed to talk about it all the time. So as we move forward, groups like Solidariweed or events like this, and with the BC Budtenders Union, they deserve support, because we need to make sure that big corporate weed doesn't take over this industry in the next few years. This is a very pivotal time right now. So many people who have put their lives into it are deciding whether they should go on or give up. And if they give up, we're going to be left with nothing but corporate cannabis. So we really need to support those who are supporting our community, our culture, the heart and soul of this movement. Make sure you go and support those retailers, those budtenders, those growers, so we can make this industry better for everybody. So I don't know how much more I want to say other than you guys are amazing to organize stuff like this. Thank you so much to everybody who ever did anything in the shadows, in the darkness, who ever really pitched in, because without the plant itself, we would just be talking about it. So those who actually grow and provide the good medicine, and the budtenders who know good stuff and make sure customers get it, thank you. Let's keep that up. And thanks to the BC Budtenders Union, let's keep working in Solidariweed.